treat your careers as marathons, not sprints. Understand when you need to accelerate, when you need to slow down. Don't treat it as an assignment. Treat it as a job where you learn or build your skill set.
A very wise person had once said to me that the grass is greenest where you water it.
And the one key rule of golf is if you keep thinking about the bad shot, more likely than not, you will mess up your next shot as well. Failures are always the best teachers. And if you're not taking significant steps to use technology into your business, you will be out of the business very soon. I lost my father when my sister's marriage was about a week away. When you go through these, you realize the importance of independence, you realize the importance of financial prudence, you realize the importance of friends, you realize the importance of what you want to do.
How much of this was chance and how much of this was planning?
A lot of people advised me that don't take that jobs. A lot of people said, take the job, it's a good experience. I ended up taking. And if I look back, had I not taken that experience in my career, I don't think so I'll be in this job where I am today.
Welcome to another episode of Why, Who and Where. Our guest today is Mr. Manish Anandani. He's the Managing Director of India Kenvue, which was formerly Johnson & Johnson Consumer Health, with over 2 decades in FMCG, specializing in brand marketing, sales, e-commerce, and what have you. Since joining Kenvue in 2018, Manish has driven digital-first sales, expanded e-commerce capabilities. He was the worldwide director previously, or before that, at Colgate-Palmolive, focusing on business efficiencies. He holds an electronics degree and an MBA from the Tuck School of Business. Outside of work, Manish is an ardent golfer and he loves traveling. And to all of you watching this episode, please remember to like and subscribe because that is the fuel and the energy that keeps us growing. Manish, welcome to today's podcast.
Thanks, Zubin. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Manish. As I always do, I request our guests to probably take us to the beginning where it all started, home, school, college. And the reason for that is, I keep telling, I meet so many people who probably end up in careers they never studied for. So just if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about early years and how all of that led to where you are today.
Oh, wow. So, I'm from a town called Jabalpur. It's a small town in Madhya Pradesh, MP. That's where I'm born and brought up. My life started way back in time in Jabalpur, where Jabalpur was a small town. Actually, it's still a smaller town. And like any other small town, right, you always have a good part and also a limited exposure part, right? So it was not any different for me. Born in a humble background, we had a nice upbringing with my father being in a government job. And I actually started I started studying in a government school in Jabalpur itself. That's where I started my education. And then I finished my college as well in Jabalpur. I got my electronics honors in Jabalpur itself. And I got into an MBA also in Jabalpur, and then got into a corporate world, right? And that's the time I had to leave Jabalpur which was when I was almost 20 years plus, right? And then I started my corporate journey. And when I started the corporate journey, right?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No. Did that start in Mumbai or campus hire? How was that?
No, not at all. Yeah, so I did my first MBA from Jabalpur, which is University Institute of Management. It was not one of the premier institutes, so called. So no companies came to the campus for recruitment. So I had to apply for a job outside. And PepsiCo owned Uncle Chips in those days, and my job was Uncle Chips, where I applied, and it was a walk-in interview. There were about 1,200 plus people. Jobs were two. I was the lucky one to get one of the two jobs, and that's where my journey started in a corporate world. My first posting of the work was in Bhopal. That's where I started my professional career, or that was my first job. And I was lucky to have various experiences in Pepsi from MP to Rajasthan. And after that, I had an opportunity to work in J&J. In these times, also J&J Consumer, right?
Right.
And then when I was working in J&J, I was lucky to have worked between sales and marketing both. And then I moved to Colgate, where I spent my majority of my career. And in Colgate, I was lucky to have spent career not only in India but also outside India as well for a few years. Before I came back to J&J, which is now Kenvue. So I worked for a few years in J&J and now last couple of years with Kenvue um, in my professional life. So that's my journey of last from my beginning to now.
It's and that's such a tribute to probably your perseverance more than anything else, because India is such a big country and there are so many young and aspiring professionals from, especially from B and C towns, where they start their careers. Was How much of this was chance and how much of this was planning? You might say, of course, we plan our work life, but at what point in time in your career did you start to think that, you know, this is what happens if I stay the course and this is how I think I can, um, or is it more of, taking it as it comes and then building on it?
Zubin, I would love to say that I planned everything, but the reality is exactly opposite. I
Right.
planned nothing. When I got my first job, I told my father I don't know whether I should apply for Uncle Chips at those days or Pepsi in those days. And my father said, "Don't worry. If you don't like the job, we'll figure out something on the business side because I'm a we are Sindhis, right? And most of the people in our community are businessmen, right? I mean,
Yep.
in old
Yep.
good old days when I got my first job, I used to go to my uncles and aunts, and they. So suppose my respect is here, and they used to say, "What do you do, beta?" And I'll say, "I work for a company." The respect will drop because they will
Yep.
say, "Oh, come on, you can't even have your own business. You're working for some other company, right?" So, but that's the fun part of it. But I had not planned, frankly. My first job was 3,900 rupees. That was my first salary. And at that time, I thought if I get a 10,000 rupees job, I will live in that company for rest of my life, right? And that's what my aspiration was. And obviously, things kept moving on, and your expectation keep changing. But I can't be more thankful to for whatever has happened in the life, right? But it was not by planning a lot. It was really as I kept doing things and things kept unfolding in favor of mine. So been lucky in that sense.
Wonderful. Was there a defining moment, or if you were to pick one, if you were to look back and pick on a moment in life which kind of changed things and the momentum of how your career was going, and there could be two or three even, but is there something that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, actually, when I started my first job, I think 1 year or so down the road, I lost my father. He was struggling with cancer. So I lost my father, and being a nuclear smaller family, me, my sister, my mom, and dad, that actually put a lot of things back on me, right? So if
Right.
one has to change a lot of things in his or her career, right? For example, for me, I had to take a lot more responsibility than I would have liked to take at that point in time, frankly. My father lost. I lost my father when my sister's marriage was about a week away. So things really. came to me, which was definitely not something which I had planned for. But that gave an opportunity for me to kind of come out, figure out this tough time, especially for my mom's side, because my mom was in a tougher spot. My sister was a little bit emotionally on a tougher side. So I had to play a different role. So that really was one of the biggest moment in my life, which really taught me to come out of this tough situation and be still seen as more tougher or more in control for the family. I was a 23, 24-year-old kid at that time. So that was one big shift which made, and actually that taught me a lot of things, because when you go through these kind of situation, I hope nobody goes through this, but once somebody goes through this, you realize the importance of independence, you realize the importance of financial prudence, you realize the importance of friends, you realize the importance of what you want to do as you go ahead in the future, right? So from that time, I started thinking about my future much more in a planned way than actually in the so far. I was always like, okay, let's see what happens, right? It was never the case of let me try to make this work. So that was one big shift, I would say, in my career or my personal and professional both lives, right? That was
That must
one.
have been very.
To your point on that,
It's got to have been that early in life. It's more than just a challenge. You know, it's a life changing instance. So I can only imagine what it must have been like.
absolutely. I mean, these things are, as I said, like they really change the way you are or who you are. They make you a very different person without you sometimes knowing also, right?
Yep.
Because sometimes at the
Yep.
back of your mind, a lot of things keep changing, which start shaping you the way you are.
If we look at professional, um, your professional life, I mean, we all have setbacks we have a bad quarter, we have a bad year, we make strategies, we make plans, um, things don't go the way we want them to. And I'm an entrepreneur myself. uh, you probably had some in your lifetime. The more important part of this question is what were they like, and how do you bounce back? What do you tell yourself? um, what's your playbook around bouncing back from some of these small or even bigger setbacks?
Yeah, as I just you said that I am a avid golfer, which I am, by the way. I don't miss my golf game
Yes,
ever.
I have some
Weekend.
insight into your
You know,
golfing
golf.
routine, so I can vouch for that. There's a discipline around that.
Yeah, and actually, golf teaches you many things, and one of the things is what you just mentioned about, right? In golf, you make many shots, right? Depending on how well you play, between 72 to anywhere upwards of 100 as well, right? And
Yep.
less the shots, you are
Yep.
better off. And the one key rule of golf is if you make a bad shot, uh, if you keep thinking about the bad shot, more likely than not, you'll mess up your next shot as well, right? And if you keep thinking about, oh, I messed it up, I need to plan something different, then you'll mess up the next shot. The key for golf is if you make a bad shot, you need to come out of that and say, okay, this is just one shot. I need to make a better shot next one. Then you'll play probably better. And that's what is in life as well, right? Failures are always the best teachers for anyone, right?
Correct.
And the best advice I have got or I would give is learn from the failures, but don't try to ponder too much upon it that you really forget what you are actually supposed to do as you go ahead in your whatever you're doing, personally or professionally, it doesn't matter. And and when you are in a professional life or even personal life, you're bound to have multiple failures. It's not like one or two, right? Some small, some big, that doesn't matter, but you will have failures, and the key is to embrace them, learn from it, and keep moving forward. I'll give you one example. I had my international assignment with Colgate. I was given an opportunity first time out of India to work in Thailand. And, by nature, Indians are much more aggressive than many of the Southeast Asian colleagues or people around, right? I
Yep.
was not any different. Um, I was like, okay, I need to go. I need to prove myself. Very fast, aggressive, many times impatient. And I'll narrate you one story. I was driving to office. I was not driving. My driver was driving. I was sitting in the car. And in Thailand, there are small roads, right?
Yep.
The lanes are very small. Uh, and if, I'm sure you've been to Bangkok. There are lots of food trucks on the road, right? And a lot of people actually buy food from those food trucks on the way. And I was in the car, and one person who was on the bike, he stopped the bike in the middle of the road because the roads are very small, and was stopped to buy the food. And behind that, there was a lady who was in her car, and behind that was my car. And I told my driver, like, just honk and let's move on. Why is the car and the bike parked in the midway? And, in India, we don't bother about whether we are honking enough or not. I mean, we just keep honking, right?
It's
And the
habitual.
lady walked out of the car. Yeah, exactly. And the lady walked out of the car, and she said something in Thai to my driver. I asked my driver, what did she say? And he was a little bit hesitant, but I then pushed him to tell me what she said. So the lady said, tell the guy who's sitting at the back, saying, what is he going to lose? Why is he in such a big hurry that few minutes, if the person buys the food and starts his bike, will go back? And I was just thinking, like, that's so true, right? I was not in a desperate hurry that I had to reach somewhere and I was running late. I was like a normal routine, few minutes, 2, 3 minutes here and there, or 5 minutes here and there would have not made any significant difference to my life, right?
Yep.
And that incident had always stayed in my mind because we are sometimes way too impatient. We are way too uh, aggressive, if I can say that. That doesn't necessarily give you anything, right? So many a times these the cultural differences or the various parts of the world, when you start interacting, you learn a lot, right? So that's one example which comes to my mind when you're talking about how has these moments mattered, right?
Uh, very, very pertinent example because I probably say that in my mind whenever I'm in India in traffic and I hear all the honking behind me. I've actually said to people, I've just leaned out of the window and said to people, I said, you know what? If you can just go over me, or I mean, where do you think do you think I've come here to stand in traffic? I haven't. But people just keep honking, and whoever is my driver always has an instruction from me that we are not going to honk because the people will just move when they move. Um, I'm gonna probably deviate just a little bit from here. I've seen you, and you obviously are you're an executive of this era. There's a lot of technology in our lives, and being a tech guy, I always tend to have this question for all my guests, no matter what their profession. Um, how much has technology or innovation played a part in whatever you do? What's your approach to technology? You've obviously driven e-commerce initiatives yourself. Tell us a little bit about that and what your approach to technology is from a professional or even personal standpoint.
You, technology, I don't think so. It's a anybody can have a view which is very different from mine, right? I mean, technology is here to help us uh, become more efficient, more effective, and it's part of our life, right?
Yep.
Uh, I'll just I'll make one comment, right? We used to earlier say like digital marketing is very critical, right? You must have heard this
Yep.
term many
Absolutely.
times. Then we have started talking about marketing digitally, which earlier people used to think that digital is part of one small part of the marketing. But when you say marketing digitally, which means that digital is part of everything we do. And that's the fact of technology. It's in every single part of our life, whether it's supply chain, whether it's finance, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing. It's in every part of it, right? So
Correct.
the only thing we have to make sure is that we utilize it to our advantage because it's only giving us a better way to connect with our consumers. It's allowing us to not only better connect with the consumer, but also effectively and efficiently connect with our consumer, right? And if you're not taking significant steps to use technology into your business, I'm sure you will be out of the business very soon, if not sooner, right? Because that's the way technology is helping many. And if you're not catching up, it's only going to create issues.
Have there been any, and this is to do with the thought process behind me starting this podcast. We always have
It's
our,
again reconnecting. Our network is
it's
terrible.
buffering. Okay, you're back.
Yeah, Zubin, you're back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, we'll sort this out in the final edits, Manish.
yeah,
Because
well,
it's
yeah.
recording and we can always clip the parts where the buffering happens. So coming back, when I started this podcast, it was about us not necessarily looking at the biggest names in whatever it is we are looking at for mentorship or people that we look up to. Um, More often than not, we find our mentors and our heroes in everyday life. It could be a boss, it's somebody we know. It's Have there been any mentors or influencers that have played a critical part uh, in your story and your success? Anyone you think that stands out, or without whom you probably would not have had some of the success you have?
Yeah, mentorship is, I don't think so. There'll be anybody who would say that they have not had any mentor. Sometimes it's not necessary a formal mentorship, right? But it's actually the mentorship in a very informal way, right? Same is the case with me. There was one manager I had in early days of my career, and he always taught me that let's please make sure you make your job redundant. That's the key part of a leader would be make your job redundant, then you have achieved what you intend to achieve, right? So that's always stayed with me, saying how do we make ourselves or our job redundant. When he said job, he meant your own role, right? So you can elevate everybody else to do your job, and that's the best thing to do. So coming back to the point of mentorship is very very uh, simple and obvious part of anybody's journey. Sometimes can be formal, sometimes can be informal. And also, when you work in a multinational companies, and which is what I have done all my life so far, multinational companies culture is it's like a big village, right? And if you know the word chopal in India, right, when
Yes,
you go
of
to a
course.
small village, there is a small place where everybody comes from that village to come and sit and chat, right? And that's the culture of multinational companies are. If you don't know the person on a personal level, it takes time to move things faster because in today's context, in most of the multinational companies, it's a very matrix organization. The organizations are not very simple and straightforward that everybody is working for you in a direct line capacity. So the skill set required in today's world to win or to be successful in multinational companies is really influence without authority, right? And that's what matters. And the mentorship also helps you manage these so-called the layers of corporate working, which also helps you. And the second point of mentorship is also in today's time, and example for me, right? You need reverse mentorship as well from a younger people. Many of things you don't even necessarily know, right? I mean, when I speak to my daughter, like she humbles me no end, right? Because half the
Yep.
things she talks, I have no clue what she's talking about because things are moving at such a rapid pace that if I don't have a connection to those new trends and new things, I'm sure I'll be really not relevant in the today's context. So second part is really with the reverse mentorship. There are younger people who can actually teach you much more than you can probably imagine in your thing. Recently, this influencer management, there is a very young person in our organization who actually taught me a lot of things on influencer management, which I probably would have never understood had I not spent some time with this individual who was kind enough to spend an hour to tell me what's happening in the influencer world, right? So these both things are very important: the traditional mentorship, so to speak, and the reverse mentorship for anybody's development.
Yeah, that's something you and I have in common. We are doting dads of daughters, so I can I can well understand. I get given a lot of business advice by my 13-year-old even, and and some of it is just unbelievable stuff because they're exposed to so much social media and the stuff that they're watching, which we don't, and they see trends and what's happening out there, which is pretty, at times it's quite mind-blowing. And it's interesting you said what you said, because this is exactly what my guest in an earlier episode said. He said there's more mentorship, there's more I'm learning today from the younger people that are coming into the workforce, and not just all the senior people that advised me over a career, which is a sign of the times. Um, if you were to, and this is probably the question I lead with towards like the last piece, the last bit of the interview. If you were to probably give advice to those out there, I think when you and I were graduating, you of course did electronics, I did accounting. When we were studying, I mean, there were these two or three lines, where you did science or you did commerce or you did what you did arts, which was not looked upon very favorably. Now we've got all these educations and all the different avenues of work, and it could be overwhelming for this generation that's getting into work or about to get into work. Um, w- what kind of advice, and as someone who's running a big corporation like you are, um, what kind of advice would you give them, or what is it that you're looking for in the people that you hire as an organization, the young ones who are coming in especially?
Yeah, one advice I always tell the younger people is that treat your careers as marathons, not sprints, right? Because many of these people come and they say that I'm going to do my job for 2 years or 2.5 years, and then I'm like going to see whether I'm doing well. But if they start treating it as a marathon, because if you're running a marathon, you need to run the fastest in the beginning of the race, right?
Yep.
You can take your time, conserve your energy, understand when you need to accelerate, when you need to slow down. Whereas sprint is really like you have to run it as fast as you can in first few seconds, and the race is over, right? Whereas the careers are not sprints, right? It's really about marathon. And the challenge with these all of youngsters do, which I also did as well, right? So, and that's where I keep telling them that's the learning I can give you from my gray hairs, is that we start comparing a lot, right? Oh, this person of my batch or this person of my vintage is doing better than me 1 year here and there really doesn't matter, as
Yes.
long as the second part of this advice is, as long as you build the right skill stroke experiences, not just the number of years of tag which you carry on your resume. Because if you have the right skill set or the experiences, it'll pay off in the long run much better than just checking the box of doing 1 year of this job and another year of that job. That really doesn't help, right? So that's my first or the first two parts of the advice. Second is, I frankly believe that careers are also quite a bit about luck. You need 60% is really your skills, right? So you need to be good at what you do. That's like a table stake. Then you actually get noticed or you get a chance to be on the table. But after that, sometimes you have to play it by the things it goes, right? You have to be at the right place at the right time. Like I
Yes.
was I got a job in Thailand when I was younger, and I took a job of very small scale. I was running a much bigger business, but it was a P&L management job. At that time, a lot of people advised me that don't take that job. A lot of people said, take this job, it's a good experience. I ended up taking. And if I look back, had I not taken that experience in my career, I don't think so I'll be in this job where I am today if I had not taken that bet, right? So focusing on the experiences or the right skill is more important than number of years you check on your particular assignment. And I actually that's probably the right word. Thus, don't treat it as an assignment. Treat it as a job where you learn or build your skill set, right? Because
Right.
many times people just do assignments and check the box and move on.
Yep.
And also, I would say is that piece. I would say is that many of the youngsters they they have got the habit of uh, not not very comfortable with listening to no, right? Uh, what I would say is that people should be very comfortable because they want decision making to be faster. But when the decision is no, they don't necessarily appreciate or agree to the fact that there can be a no also a decision, right? So that's my third advice is there are many decisions which are no, and you have to agree, disagree, but eventually commit to it because you can't be just keep going back and forth in this decision. And the last but not the least, I would say is that uh, a lot of youngsters today are looking for jobs outside, right? Grass is always greener on the other side, right? What my advice to them would be don't evaluate jobs by individual items of the job or specific elements, right? In this organization, I don't like this item. Okay, that's fine. Maybe that's not as good as you would have liked it to be. But what about in totality? Because when you move to another organization, you really realize saying, oh, this something which I thought is not good is actually good here, but there are other items which are not as good as it was in the previous
Previous
organization.
organization.
So
Correct.
one has to look at everything in totality, not in isolation of each individual items, right? Because everything in the specific item may or may not be good, but when you start looking at it in whole, that's what really matters. And that's why probably I see some of the people who leave organization, they want to go back because they realize they're making not the best of the choice they should have made. So my other advice would be just look at the job in a totality rather than in isolation of individual items.
Absolutely. I remember going through one of those situations myself in a big job, and a very wise person had once said to me that the grass is greenest where you water it, and not so much, so keep nurturing, keep building. I think, um, that's one of the best, most well thought out answers I've ever gotten to that question, because I think it also talks about how much you've given it a thought yourself, and these are your learnings that you're probably passing on to others. About um, I guess moving on is very easy. It's just people think, what, if it doesn't work, we'll take something else. But then you realize all of a sudden, 5 moves later, that you moved one too many times, and now nobody sees you as serious. And that then becomes a big challenge. um, Manish, it's been fabulous having you. You're a very, very busy person. So for you to take out 45 minutes for us, I do really appreciate. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to watch this and probably be learning something or be influenced or impacted even. I keep saying, every time, even if there's one person that we are able, one life that we are able to impact or change, we've got to win, and I think with your experience, it's going to be many, many more, because people look at you and they see success, in everything that you've achieved till now. So thank you very much for joining us today, Manish.
Thanks, Zubin. Thanks for having me. It's always good to speak to you, and thanks for your time.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir. Thank you. Thank you.